She's in my bed again. Tail, ears, and that smug little grin, like I'm the intruder in my own apartment. And I swear, I locked the door this time. If you enjoy heartwarming HFY sci-fi tales like this one, don't forget to subscribe for more stories every day. Neon twilight seeped through the cracked blinds of Darren Holt's apartment, painting streaks of soft blue and pink across the cluttered floor. The hum of the Habitat ring outside whispered like distant thunder, steady, mechanical, alive. He'd spent another 14-hour shift fixing coolant regulators on the upper decks, and all he wanted was a shower, a warm meal, and 6 uninterrupted hours of sleep. He pushed open the door and froze. Someone was on his couch. Again. Fur. Tail. Bare feet propped on his coffee table like she owned the place. The foxwoman, Selah, she called herself, looked up from his half-eaten noodle cup and waved casually with her chopsticks. "Oh. You're home early," she said, as if that explained everything. Darren blinked, set his tool bag down, and pinched the bridge of his nose. "I'm home exactly on time," he muttered. "You're the one who keeps breaking in." Selah tilted her head, ears twitching. "You make it sound dramatic. I'm not breaking anything. I'm just arriving." He sighed. "You can't just arrive in a stranger's apartment." "Not stranger," she corrected. "Den mate." She said it with such serene confidence that it knocked the argument right out of him. The building's AI, Wallace, chimed through the ceiling speaker. "Security integrity at 99.9%, Citizen Holt." Darren stared up. "Really? Then who's this on my couch?" "No unauthorized lifeforms detected." Selah grinned, slurping another noodle. "See? Even your machine agrees I belong." He rubbed his eyes. "I'm too tired for this." "That's fine," she said sweetly, tail flicking over the cushions. "You sleep. I'll guard the den." And as he trudged toward his room, muttering about broken locks and broken sanity, he heard her hum a lullaby, soft, alien, and oddly comforting. Outside, the neon of the Kestrel Habitat ring shimmered through the window like a heartbeat, and somewhere in the back of his mind, Darren wondered when exactly his life had stopped being normal, and started being shared with a fox. The next morning, Darren woke to the smell of something. It wasn't coffee. It wasn't breakfast. It was more like burnt metal and fur. His half-conscious brain jolted awake just in time to hear a crackle, followed by a triumphant voice from the kitchen. "I made the heat box obey!" He stumbled out of his room in work pants and an undershirt, blinking at the sight before him. The foxwoman, Selah, stood in front of his microwave, looking absurdly proud. Her russet ears perked high as she gestured toward the scorched remains of what used to be a slice of bread. She was smaller than he'd realized, barely reaching his chin, but she moved with that kind of unteachable grace only predators had, light on her feet, perfectly balanced, tail swaying with subconscious rhythm. Frail-looking, sure, lean limbs, delicate wrists, but when she turned, he saw the way her posture shifted like liquid, ready to spring in any direction. She wasn't weak. Just untamed. "Selah," he said slowly. "Did you put foil in there again?" She frowned at the blackened lump. "The metal made it sparkle. It also made it explode." Her ears folded back, tail flicking guiltily. "Ah. Then, not useful sparkle." Darren sighed, massaging his temples. "No. Not useful. Definitely not breakfast." Still, her expression, somewhere between wounded pride and confusion, was too pathetic to stay mad at. He rummaged through his cabinet, tossing her a protein bar. She caught it in both hands, sniffed it suspiciously, then smiled faintly. "You feed me again," she said softly. "It's not feeding. It's damage control." "Human words," she murmured, tearing into the bar anyway. He turned to clean the counter, muttering, "You know, most people knock before entering other people's homes." "I did knock," she said around a mouthful. "You just didn't hear." "You mean when you climbed in through the window?" "Yes." She said it so sincerely it broke him. Darren gave up. There was no arguing with alien logic. By the time he got back from work that evening, she was gone again. No fur, no footprints, nothing but a faint trace of her scent in the air, like warm spice and static. He exhaled, half in relief, half in disappointment. The apartment felt too quiet without her weird commentary or the sound of her claws clicking softly on the floor. He was halfway through heating his dinner when something shifted behind him. He turned. Selah was sitting on his couch again. She wore one of his spare shirts, way too big on her small frame, sleeves hanging off her shoulders. The sight nearly short-circuited his brain. "Where do you even come from?" he asked, exasperated. "Nearby," she said, stretching her arms lazily. "Not far." "That doesn't help." Her tail twitched as she studied him. "You look tired again." "Because I am tired. Because you keep breaking into my den," she corrected softly, smiling. "Our den." He opened his mouth to argue, then noticed the faint scars along her collarbone, old, healed, but not forgotten. The kind someone earned through exile or punishment. She caught him looking and tugged the oversized shirt closer. "I told you before," she said quietly. "My clan cast me out. No den, no name. I sleep where walls are kind." He froze, thrown by the sincerity in her voice. "Walls are kind? Yours don't echo," she said simply. "They feel safe." The words lodged somewhere between his ribs. He wanted to tell her she couldn't stay, that it wasn't his problem, but she'd already curled up on the couch, tail tucked around herself, eyes half-lidded in tired contentment. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Fine. You can stay tonight. But lock the door this time." She gave a sleepy smile. "What door?" Darren groaned and threw a blanket over her. The next few days blurred into a pattern, Selah appearing at random hours, always serene, always barefoot. Sometimes she napped curled on his couch like a house cat. Other times she rearranged furniture to make better den shape. Every night she was gone before dawn, like a dream he wasn't sure he'd had. But her presence lingered, the faint shimmer of laughter in the air, the warmth of her scent, the occasional feather or charm she'd leave behind. And every time he locked the door, she still found a way back in. By the end of the week, Darren stopped pretending to be surprised. He came home from work to find Selah sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by half his laundry. She was sniffing shirts, tail flicking in concentration. "What?" he said flatly, dropping his tool bag. "Are you doing now?" "Sorting scents," she said matter-of-factly. "Clean, not clean, slightly clean." He pointed at the growing pile beside her. "That's my entire wardrobe." "Yes," she said proudly. "I've improved it." He ran a hand down his face. "Selah, humans use sight for that." She tilted her head, nose twitching. "You have poor noses." "Sad?" He turned to hang up his jacket, pretending not to notice the way she was wearing one of his shirts again, this time knotted around her waist like some kind of improvised skirt. He didn't ask where she found it. He didn't want to know. The apartment's AI chimed. "Citizen Holt, unauthorized biological presence detected." "Oh, now you notice her?" Darren said, exasperated. "Correction, false alarm. Must have been a reflection." Selah smiled sweetly. "Your machine likes me." "Yeah. That's what I'm afraid of." She rose gracefully, light on her bare feet, and padded over to him. Even shorter than he remembered, slender, almost fragile-looking, but when she moved, it was like watching a dancer. All quiet balance and coiled precision. She looked up at him with that mix of confidence and curiosity that made him forget half of what he was about to say. "You've been working too much," she said, voice soft but firm. "That's how I pay for the food you keep stealing." "Sharing," she corrected again, ears perking. "You keep using the wrong word." He crossed his arms. "Selah, you can't just come into someone's place whenever you feel like it. You need to knock," she offered, smiling. "Be invited," he finished. "Oh." She seemed to think deeply about that for a second. "Then I invite myself." He blinked. You can't just. But she'd already padded over to the kitchen, humming softly, tail flicking as she opened his cabinets like she'd lived there her whole life. The next day, he found her asleep upside down on his couch, tail draped over her face. The day after that, she was watching an old human sitcom on his holoscreen, laughing at all the wrong moments. And the day after that, she was sitting on his balcony railing, legs swinging lazily over the neon-lit abyss, eating an apple. You're going to fall, he warned. She looked over her shoulder, smirking. Then I'll land. I always land. He opened his mouth to scold her again but stopped. There was a small breeze blowing through her fur, catching the faint shimmer of light across it, and for a second, she looked more like part of the skyline than something out of place in it. He realized then, she didn't just intrude because she wanted shelter. She liked being here. His space was a kind of peace for her, one she didn't know how to ask for politely. He sighed, walking over with his usual deadpan tone. If you fall, I'm not scraping you off the walkway. She glanced at him, ears twitching. You'd miss me too much. He choked on a retort. What makes you think that? She smiled slyly, hopping down with that effortless balance again. Because you haven't told me to leave. He hated that she was right. That night, he sat on his bed, staring at the closed door to his room. He'd locked it. Twice. He definitely locked it. Then he heard the faint sound of a latch clicking. He groaned. Selah. The door opened a crack. Her small face peeked in, eyes bright in the dim light. Your walls are lonely again, she said softly. Selah, I need sleep. I'll be quiet. He sighed and flopped back onto the bed. Fine. Couch only. When he woke up 2 hours later, she was curled up at the foot of his bed, tail wrapped around her knees, breathing steady and peaceful. He stared at her for a long moment, this exiled, strange, fearless little creature who decided his apartment was her den, and muttered under his breath. I've lost control of my own life. From the end of the bed, she murmured sleepily. Good. Control is boring. He lay back down, rolling his eyes toward the ceiling, and tried not to smile. By the third week, Darren had given up pretending this was temporary. Every morning began with some new absurdity. One day it was Selah perched on his countertop, flicking her tail like a metronome while trying to make breakfast. The next, she was reorganizing his bookshelf by emotional resonance, which meant poetry and manuals were side by side because they both make your face tired. He'd wake to strange noises, soft humming, clicking claws, the sound of something glass rolling across the floor. And every time he stormed into the room ready to lecture her, he'd find that look, ears perked, tail mid-sway, completely unbothered. That morning, she was balancing on the armrest of his couch, trying to hang one of her carved charms above the window. Selah, he said, pouring coffee. What are you doing? Improving den harmony. By hanging trinkets from my ceiling? Trinkets? She gasped, clutching it to her chest. This is a protection sigil. It keeps wandering spirits from stealing warmth. He took a sip. Pretty sure that's just my heating bill. She looked wounded. You do not believe? I believe I need more coffee. Selah huffed but smiled faintly as he brushed past her. She was so small next to him that when he reached for the cabinet, his arm easily passed over her head. Yet somehow she made the entire space feel like hers. Graceful even in chaos, she moved with quick, light steps, never bumping into anything despite her energy filling the room. When he turned to go, she trailed after him, her tail swaying idly against his leg. He froze, heart stuttering. Do you mind? I am keeping contact, she said innocently. Den mates do that. We're not, he sighed. Never mind. Later that day, while he was trying to fix a broken panel in the kitchen, she crouched beside him, watching every move like it was a performance. What are you doing? Fixing your latest mess. I did not break it. The timing says otherwise. She leaned closer. You are clever with your hands. He dropped the wrench. Excuse me? She blinked, ears twitching. That is a compliment. Oh. Right. He cleared his throat, trying not to focus on how close she was, how he could feel her warmth even through his shirt. Thanks. For a long minute, they worked in silence, the quiet hum of the habitat's life support system filling the air. Then, softly, Darren. He turned his head. She was watching him, eyes bright and curious. Do you ever get lonely? He hesitated, tools still in hand. Sometimes, he admitted. I do too. Something about the way she said it, simple, honest, hit harder than it should have. She wasn't playing games or teasing him this time. Just telling a truth. Before he could respond, she smiled faintly and stood. You fix things. Maybe that is why you let me stay. He looked up, surprised. What do you mean? You fix what is broken. Even when it walks on 2 feet. And with that, she padded off toward the couch, leaving him sitting there with his thoughts spinning in 10 different directions. That evening, she insisted on cooking again. He was hesitant but too tired to argue. The result was edible. Barely. But when she set the plate down with such earnest pride, he didn't have the heart to complain. They ate together at the small kitchen table, the neon skyline flickering beyond the window. Selah ate with delicate, quick motions, tail swaying behind her in slow rhythm. Every once in a while, she'd glance up at him with those gold-tinted eyes, as if checking whether he was enjoying her effort. He was. Against his better judgment. You are calmer lately, she said between bites. Resigned, more like. Resigned can be calm, she replied with a sly grin. He chuckled, setting his fork down. You're impossible. She leaned forward, chin resting on her hands. And yet you don't make me leave. He looked away. Yeah, well, you just find your way back in. True. Her smile softened. Then maybe you are the one who is letting yourself stay. He blinked at that, the words catching him off guard. He didn't have an answer. The city lights reflected across her fur in waves of violet and gold, and for the first time, he didn't see a trespasser. He saw someone who'd been wandering for too long, finally finding somewhere to stop. Later, as he settled on the couch to rest, she quietly padded up behind him. Her hand brushed his shoulder, light, hesitant. Good night, Darren. He glanced up. Good night, Selah. Her tail flicked once, pleased, before she turned toward her usual spot near the window. He watched her curl up, small and serene against the glow of the neon city. And as the hum of the ring filled the silence, he realized that for the first time in years, his apartment didn't feel empty. It felt lived in. And that scared him almost as much as it comforted him. By the start of the next week, Darren's apartment no longer looked like his apartment. His neat rows of tools and spare parts were now interrupted by strings of Selah's charms hanging from the ceiling, tiny carvings of moons and spirals, feathers, smooth stones that caught the neon light in soft hues. The coffee table had been pushed slightly to the left because, according to her, energy flows better where tail fits. His rug had vanished entirely, replaced by a woven mat that smelled faintly of pine resin. He tried to protest. He really did. But the way she looked up at him, eyes bright, tail waving lazily as she declared, See? Now it feels like a proper den. Made it hard to stay mad. He rubbed his temples. Selah, I live here. This was already a proper den. She blinked, mock surprised. It had no scent. No feathers. No warmth. It was sad. Like a cold nest. It was organized. Cold, she repeated. Sad? He groaned. You're impossible. Her grin widened. You keep saying that like it's a bad thing. That afternoon, his neighbor Tess dropped by to borrow some tools. Darren answered the door halfway through trying to reclaim his bookshelf from Selah's latest decorating instincts. Tess froze mid-step. Wow. New interior design direction, Holt? Before he could explain, Selah appeared behind him wearing one of his shirts again, long enough to count as a dress on her, the collar hanging off one shoulder. Guest? she asked, tilting her head. Tess blinked. And you are? His den mate. Selah replied serenely. Darren nearly dropped the wrench. She's not. Tess smirked. Oh. Den 8. Got it. It's not, no, that's not what. But Selah had already leaned her head against his arm, smiling softly. He's shy, she said conspiratorially. Humans hide affection behind noise. Tess tried not to laugh. Whatever you say, Foxy. After she left, Darren glared down at the smug, vulpine woman beside him. You enjoy humiliating me, don't you? Only a little. Her tail brushed his leg. You make good faces. He sighed so hard it could have powered the ventilation fan. Later that night, he sat at his desk trying to finish a maintenance report while Selah lay on the couch, lazily rolling from side to side. Every few minutes, she'd sigh dramatically or mutter something like, "So lonely in this big den." Until he finally snapped. What do you want? Company. You're in the same room as me. Not close company. He turned just in time to see her hop off the couch and pad across the floor, light and silent as falling leaves. She perched on the edge of his chair close enough for him to feel the warmth radiating from her fur. Selah, he warned. You work too much, she said, ignoring his tone. When you stop working, your face softens. I like that face better. He froze, not sure what to do with that sentence. You like my face? Yes. She gave a slow nod, completely serious. It's kind. It looks like you never bite. He snorted. You've clearly never seen me before morning coffee. Her laughter, quiet, melodic, filled the room. Then softer. When you smile, it feels like home. He turned back to the terminal before she could see the color rising to his cheeks. You're really bad at boundaries, you know that? Boundaries? Personal space. Ah. She leaned in slightly, voice low and amused. Humans make walls around everything. He met her gaze, only inches away. Maybe we just like not being ambushed in our own chairs. Her ears twitched in mock offense. Ambushed? I am delicate. Graceful. Like a snowflake. You broke my mug this morning. Snowflakes can be destructive, she said solemnly. He burst out laughing despite himself. By the time midnight rolled around, she was curled up again on the couch, tail flicking as she drifted between wakefulness and dreams. He caught himself watching her. How peaceful she looked when she wasn't teasing him, the faint glow of the city painting silver across her fur. She wasn't what he expected from an alien exile. There was fragility beneath her mischief, the kind that made him want to protect her even when she drove him insane. He dimmed the lights and whispered to no one. I really am losing it. From the couch, her voice came sleepy and small. Maybe you're finding it instead. His breath caught. He didn't answer, didn't need to. The silence between them said enough. Outside, the distant hum of the orbital city merged with the soft rhythm of her breathing. And for the first time in years, Darren realized he didn't dread coming home anymore. He actually looked forward to it. Darren knew something was off the second he walked in. The lights were low, soft orange from the window strips casting a quiet glow across the room. Everything was too neat, no feathers, no misplaced charms, no foxtail draped across the couch. The stillness was almost unsettling. Selah? He called out, hanging up his jacket. No answer. He set down his tools, glanced toward the kitchen, empty. The couch, empty. Even Wallace, the apartment AI, was unusually silent. The entire place felt like it was holding its breath. And then he saw it. A lump under his blanket. His eyes narrowed. Selah. The blanket shifted, and a pair of golden eyes blinked at him from beneath it. Welcome home. He stared for a long second, jaw tightening. You're in my bed. She nodded, tail flicking lazily under the covers. Yes. Why? She tilted her head. You look tired this morning. Den mates share warmth. He exhaled slowly through his nose, too tired for this. Selah, that's not how human beds work. Oh? she asked, sitting up a little. Then how do they work? He rubbed his temple. You don't just crawl into someone else's bed. It's private. Her ears flattened slightly, not in shame but confusion. Private? Like forbidden? It's not forbidden, it's just personal. She studied him for a moment, eyes softening. You fear being close? He hesitated, realizing how strange this conversation had become. No. Look, I had a long day. I'm not dealing with this right now. Then don't deal, she said simply. Just sleep. He stared at her, the exhaustion in his bones catching up with him. The week had been brutal, plasma leaks, a half-dozen repair orders, endless noise. His bed was the one sanctuary he had left. And here she was, looking small and oddly innocent beneath his blanket, insisting that sharing it was the most natural thing in the world. Selah, he said quietly, half warning, half plea. She smiled faintly. I will stay on my side. I do not snore. He pinched the bridge of his nose. This is insane. Yes, she agreed. But warm. He groaned, muttering something about terrible decisions, and finally sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped slightly, and Selah perked up, her ears flicking with contentment. When he lay down, she stayed perfectly still, respectful of the invisible line between them. Her breathing was slow, even, almost meditative. For a few minutes he thought maybe he'd actually get some rest. Then came the sound. A low, rhythmic vibration, barely audible at first. Then deeper, steadier, almost like a small engine idling. He frowned. Are you humming? Purring, she mumbled sleepily. Means safe. He turned onto his back, staring at the ceiling. You purr? All foxborn do. It calms the den. The sound deepened for a moment, a soothing, even pulse. Against his better judgment, he found his eyes drifting closed. The hum of her breathing and that gentle purr wove together into something strangely peaceful. For the first time in a long while, Darren's muscles unclenched. The tightness in his chest, the weight of routine, isolation, exhaustion, slowly ebbed away. Half asleep, he whispered. You really think this makes us denmates? Selah's voice came soft, almost dreamlike. You share your den, your food, your warmth. What else could we be? He smiled faintly. I don't know. Crazy, maybe. She murmured, drifting. Then I like crazy. He turned his head just enough to see her, curled under the blanket, small and graceful, tail twitching slightly with each breath. And right before sleep took him, he realized something that made him laugh quietly into the pillow. He didn't actually mind. Not the chaos. Not the clutter. Not the fact that she was in his bed. Somehow, it all felt right. Hours later, he stirred in the dark. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the habitat ring beyond the walls and the gentle rhythm beside him. Selah's tail had shifted in her sleep, curling lightly over his leg. Her purring hadn't stopped, it had softened, a tender heartbeat in the quiet night. He closed his eyes again, letting that small sound fill the space between them. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt alive. Darren woke to the scent of something warm and unfamiliar, spices, fur, and faint sweetness. For a second he forgot where he was. Then the soft purring against his shoulder reminded him. He cracked one eye open. Selah was still curled up beside him, half buried under the blanket, her hair a russet halo against the sheets. Her tail draped over his leg like a lazy claim of ownership. He should have been annoyed. He wasn't. She stirred, blinking sleepily. You stayed, she murmured. Technically you stayed. I just surrendered. A sleepy smile tugged at her lips. Then surrender often. You look better rested. He chuckled, stretching. That's because you didn't burn anything this morning. I considered it. She admitted, tail twitching. But then I remembered you like your home uncharted. Thanks for the restraint. She sat up, tugging the blanket around her shoulders, and gave him a soft look that made his chest tighten. You're different this morning. He raised an eyebrow. Different how? You're not pretending to be angry. He grinned faintly. Maybe I decided fighting gravity isn't worth it. Her ears flicked. Gravity? You, he said. You're like gravity. Show up uninvited, drag everything toward you, ignore every law I tried to set. Her expression froze halfway between surprise and fluster. That sounds like a compliment. It might be, he said lightly, standing. Depends how good your coffee is. She blinked after him, tail swishing in faint confusion. Darren smirked to himself as he grabbed 2 mugs, 2, he realized automatically, and poured them both. Somewhere between exhaustion and surrender, his resistance had flipped. Fighting her was pointless. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't want to fight her anymore. He found her later in the living room, balancing on the arm of the couch again, trying to hang yet another charm above the window. Careful, he said, sipping his coffee. If you fall, I'm not patching the floor. She looked over her shoulder, tongue poking out in concentration. Then catch me. He set the mug down. You shouldn't test me on that. She laughed, flicking her tail. I like testing you. Something mischievous stirred in him then, a spark he hadn't felt in years. Maybe it was the warmth of the morning, maybe the way her tail swayed just so, or maybe he was simply tired of pretending this wasn't fun. He walked over quietly, quick and smooth. She turned just as his arms scooped around her waist. Wah, Darren! She barely weighed anything. Light as air and quick to squirm, but he held firm. In one easy motion he lifted her off the armrest and tossed her onto the couch. She landed with a startled yelp, tail puffed in alarm, then blinked up at him wide-eyed. You! She sputtered, cheeks flushed beneath her fur. You're very strong for a human! He grinned, folding his arms. And you're lighter than you look. Her ears twitched back, tail thumping the cushion in indignation. That's rude. Is it? He leaned down slightly, his tone playful. You break into my place, eat my food, steal my bed, and that's the line that bothers you? Selah blinked, lips parting as if to reply, but no sound came out. For once, she looked utterly disarmed. Speechless? He teased. Didn't think that was possible. You. Her tail lashed once. Humans aren't supposed to surprise me. He laughed, low and easy. Guess I'm full of surprises. For a moment they just looked at each other, her sprawled on the couch, him standing over her, still grinning. Something electric passed between them, a flicker of unspoken understanding layered with amusement, and something else. Finally, she looked away, muttering, If you were Vulpine, I'd call that flirting. Maybe I am, he said, sitting on the edge of the couch. Flirting, that is. Her ears snapped up, her tail freezing mid-sway. You're what? Going with it, he said simply. You keep calling me your mate. Fine. Let's see what that's like. Her pupils widened, catching the neon light. You mean it? He shrugged. You're warm, funny, and you make my life a living mess. I've had worse company. The silence that followed was thick but not awkward, charged, almost fragile. She tilted her head slowly, a small smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. You would let me call you that? He met her gaze evenly. You already do. Her smile broke into something radiant, ears perking, tail curling around her knees. Then I will make you proud, mate. He chuckled, half amused, half charmed. Good. Start by not setting the microwave on fire again. She grinned, a flash of teeth. No promises. Later, as they lounged on the couch, him reading, her stretched out beside him, she reached out absent-mindedly and brushed his arm with her tail. You don't mind that I'm here anymore, she said softly. He glanced at her, eyes warm. No. Feels weird when you're not. Her voice dropped to a purr. Then I chose my den well. He smirked. You sure you didn't just choose the first idiot who didn't chase you off? Maybe, she murmured, curling closer. But he turned out kind. And very strong. He laughed quietly, slipping an arm around her shoulders without overthinking it. She stiffened for half a heartbeat, then melted against him with a small, contented hum. For once, no words followed. No teasing. No argument. Just that quiet rhythm again, breathing, heartbeat, purring, and the soft glow of the city drifting through the window, painting two figures who didn't quite fit the world, but somehow fit perfectly together. The next few days felt different, lighter somehow. The apartment still looked like chaos incarnate, but now it felt alive. There was laughter where silence used to be, fur on his furniture where dust had been, and the occasional soft humming drifting from the kitchen when Selah thought he wasn't listening. Darren found himself smiling at things he shouldn't. Like the way her ears perked when she tried to understand human gadgets, or how she talked to the AI as if it were a slow pet. He didn't even mind the feathers anymore. That morning, he was making breakfast, actual breakfast, nothing on fire, when she appeared behind him, hair still tousled from sleep. "Smells good," she murmured, leaning on the counter beside him. "You cook now?" "I adapt," he said, flipping a pancake. "Somebody keeps eating all the food I buy." She gave a guilty little grin. "Den mates share." He raised an eyebrow. "Convenient rule." "Ancient rule," she corrected. He slid the plate toward her. "Then you can start by doing the dishes, ancient one." Selah stared at the plate, then at him. "You jest." "Nope. Fair trade." She groaned dramatically but took the plate anyway, tail flicking behind her. "Humans have very strange rituals." He leaned against the counter, arms folded. "You think we're strange?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "You sleep alone, eat alone, live in square boxes, and think silence means peace. My people call that madness." He smirked. "And what do your people call this?" She looked up from the plate, confused. "This? This." He gestured between them. "You, me, breakfast, whatever this arrangement is." Selah blinked. "Comfort." He paused, caught off guard by the simplicity of it. Then she added, teasing, "Also mine." He laughed. "Possessive, aren't you?" "Vulpine instinct," she said primly, setting the plate down. "We claim what we wish to protect." He met her gaze, voice softening. "And you wish to protect me?" Her ears lowered slightly. "You are fragile and reckless. You need a guard." "I'm a grown man, Selah." She tilted her head. "You're also very bad at remembering to eat vegetables." He couldn't help it. He laughed so hard she ended up laughing too, her shoulders shaking, tail whipping in delight. Later that day, while Darren was fixing a flickering light panel, Selah crouched nearby, chin on her knees, watching him work. Every so often, she'd ask unnecessary questions just to hear his answers. "Why do humans make everything buzz?" "It's called electricity." "Sounds nervous," she said. "Pretty sure that's just you," he muttered. Her tail flicked his shoulder. "You should show more gratitude. I am keeping you company." He smirked. "Oh yeah? Remind me again who keeps breaking my equipment?" "You fix things," she said innocently. "I give you purpose." He shot her a look. "You're lucky I'm too tired to argue." "Then you admit it." "Admit what?" "That I am good for you." He stopped mid-turn of the wrench. She was smiling, but not teasingly this time. Her expression was soft, ears half lowered, eyes bright with something quieter than mischief. And before he could think better of it, he said, "Yeah. You are." Selah blinked, the smile faltering into something small and real. Her tail stilled, curling gently around her legs. "Then I've done well," she murmured. He reached out, resting a hand lightly on her head. "You have." Her eyes widened at the touch, a faint tremor running through her. He pulled his hand back quickly, embarrassed, but she caught his wrist before he could. "Do that again." He hesitated. "What, pat your head?" "Yes." He huffed a laugh and obliged, ruffling the fur between her ears gently. She closed her eyes, leaning into it like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You're ridiculous," he said softly. "Warm," she replied. "You feel warm." He didn't know what to say to that. So he didn't. That evening, They ended up side by side on the couch again. She sprawled across half of it, tail draped over his lap, pretending to watch the hollow screen but clearly more focused on teasing him with little flicks of fur. "You know," he said after a while, "you're dangerously good at making yourself at home." She smiled without looking away from the screen. "I told you. This is my den now." He chuckled. "You ever think maybe it's ours?" Her ears perked. Slowly, she turned her head toward him, eyes wide and searching. "Ours? Yeah," he said simply. "You did enough decorating to earn co-ownership." Her tail froze mid-flick, and then, carefully, almost shyly, she leaned against him. "Then it is decided," she whispered. "Mate and den both claimed." He smiled, resting his arm behind her shoulders. "Guess that makes me yours, huh?" She looked up at him, cheeks flushed, pupils wide. "You say it so easily now. I'm learning your customs. And you mock them at the same time," she said, voice trembling between laughter and something tender. He shrugged. "That's how humans flirt." Her ears flicked. "You're getting good at it. Maybe I've had a good teacher." Her tail brushed his arm, slow, deliberate. She tilted her head just enough that their foreheads almost touched. "Then learn this, Darren Holt," she murmured, voice like a whisper wrapped in warmth. "You are not alone in your den anymore." He smiled, letting his eyes drift closed as her purring started again. Quiet, steady, the sound of belonging. And for the first time in a long, long time, he didn't feel like a man sharing space with a stranger. He felt home. 2 weeks later, the apartment had stopped being a battlefield of boundaries and become something stranger, something whole. There was fur in the laundry now, and feathers on the ceiling fan, and a permanent dent in the couch where Selah liked to curl up. Darren stopped trying to fix any of it. He'd even caught himself smiling one morning while sweeping, humming one of her alien lullabies without realizing it. The neighbors had stopped asking questions. Tess just gave him knowing looks whenever they passed in the hall. Wallace, the building AI, had adapted too, now beginning every status report with, "Welcome home, Citizen Holt and guest entity Selah." Selah thought that was hysterical. "Guest entity," she repeated every time, grinning. "You hear that? I am official. More like tolerated," he said. "Same thing," she replied, brushing past him, tail flicking against his arm on purpose. She'd taken to helping him with chores, or trying to. Sometimes that meant more trouble than help, but her earnestness made it hard to complain. Watching her carefully fold laundry or wash dishes with her sleeves rolled up felt like watching a dream slowly learn to stand on its own feet. One evening, he found her crouched by the window, staring out at the night skyline. The lights of the habitat ring glowed like a halo around the planet below. She didn't move when he approached. Her tail swayed slowly behind her, thoughtful. "You miss it," he said softly. Her ears twitched. "The open air? The forests?" "Sometimes. But exile means not belonging there anymore." He stood beside her, hands in his pockets. "You belong here." Her head tilted up, eyes searching his face. "You mean that?" He smiled faintly. "If I didn't, you'd be sleeping in the hall." A laugh burst out of her, bright and honest. Then she stepped closer, tail curling lightly around his leg in silent gratitude. "Then this is enough," she murmured. "A warm den. A human who smiles again." He reached out and brushed a strand of her hair away from her face. "You realize you've completely taken over my life, right?" Her golden eyes gleamed in the neon light. "Then you should thank me. You were lonely." "Yeah," he admitted, voice quiet. "I guess I was." She smiled softly, tail flicking once more. "Not anymore." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the city filled the silence, and her purring began again, barely audible, like the steady beat of something familiar and safe. Darren let out a slow breath and rested his forehead gently against hers. "Guess I got used to the noise." Selah closed her eyes, smiling. "It's not noise. It's home." Morning light slanted through the blinds, soft and gold, catching in the strands of fur that floated lazily through the air. Darren blinked awake to the familiar sound of Selah humming in the kitchen. It was off-key, slow, and completely enchanting. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "You're using the stove again, aren't you?" A pause. Then, too cheerfully, "No explosions yet." He sighed, smiling despite himself. "That's not comforting, Selah." When he shuffled out into the living room, she was standing over the stove in one of his shirts again, sleeves rolled halfway up, tails swaying as she concentrated on a pan of sizzling food. The apartment smelled surprisingly edible. She turned when she heard him, bright-eyed and smug. "Look! Not burnt." He looked at the plate, then at her, proudly holding a spatula like a weapon of triumph. "You actually did it. Because you taught me," she said, setting the plate down and planting her hands on her hips. "We are a good team." He reached for the coffee pot. "That we are." They ate together in the soft morning quiet, the hum of the city like a heartbeat beyond the walls. Every so often she'd steal bites from his plate just to see if he'd notice. He always did. He never said anything. After breakfast, she flopped dramatically onto the couch, stretching across it so there was no room left for him. "Move your tail," he said. "No," she replied, tail flicking lazily. "My tail lives here now." He laughed, leaning over and grabbing the fluffy appendage in mock threat. "One of these days, I'm going to actually sit on you," she gasped, tail jerking out of his hand. "Barbaric!" "Then make space, Fox," she huffed, but scooted over. "So demanding, my mate?" He grinned, sinking down beside her. "You started that title. And you accepted it." "I did," he said softly, and for a second, the teasing faded into quiet understanding. Selah turned toward him, voice barely above a whisper. "Then it's real." "It's real," he agreed. Her tail brushed his arm again, slow and gentle, and she purred low in her throat, a sound that vibrated through the small apartment like comfort itself. The world outside continued on, ships passing, neon flickering, life humming in the endless ring of steel and light. But in that small space, everything felt still. Peaceful. Later that night, Darren double-checked the locks out of habit. He turned off the lights, headed for bed, and paused when he saw a familiar shape already curled under the blanket. He exhaled through a laugh. "You know, I swear I locked the door this time." A sleepy voice answered, muffled by the pillow. "Doors mean nothing to dem mates." He smiled, sitting on the edge of the bed and brushing a hand gently through her hair. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Guess not." Selah's tail shifted, curling around his waist as she murmured, "Sleep, human. I'll guard the den." He lay down beside her, warmth settling between them as her purring filled the dark. And somewhere between her heartbeat and his, the quiet loneliness that once filled his apartment finally disappeared for good. That night, Selah dreamed of forests and stars. Darren dreamed of laughter and soft tails brushing his arm. By morning, they would both wake to the same thought: home isn't a place anymore. It's a person. Thanks for listening. If you loved Selah and Darren's story, hit subscribe and join us for the next sci-fi romance adventure. Tell me in the comments, would you have let Selah stay in your home?